Hi, you're watching Goodfellas History. I'm one of your hosts, Garrett.
I'm Nick.
I'm Davis.
All right, and today I want to talk about the $3.5 trillion budget plan that Democrats are kind of talking about with Biden. So here we go. So I want to start out with this New York Times article, and this is behind a paywall. However, for me, I was able to make an account and get a free article. So I haven't paid anything for this, but I do want to let that be known. This is behind a paywall, and so I do have this kind of up on the screen to kind of go through, so anyone watching this doesn't have to go and do that. But it's Democrats roll out 3.5 trillion budget to fulfill Biden's broad agenda, and this is an article by Jonathan Weissman, Emily Cochrane, and Jim Tankersley.
Okay.
Fancy names in there.
So yeah, we're just
Which
going to kind
outlet
of
is it from?
the New York Times. Sorry,
Okay.
I don't know if I've already said that. The New York Times. So we're going to get a lot done, President Biden said, as Senate Democrats begin drafting the details on a social and environmental bill that could yield transformative change. So here we go. So President Biden and congressional Democrats vowed on Wednesday to push through a 3.5 trillion budget blueprint to vastly expand social and environmental programs by extending the reach of education and healthcare, taxing the rich, and tackling the warming of the planet. And this
What-
was this. Sorry, what was that?
Where does that budget blueprint go?
Where does it go?
Yeah.
It goes to another kind of article, but it won't. This is my free article, so it won't let me access it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few of that throughout here. There's a few like kind of hyperlinks.
Cash walls, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's not expensive, but still, I don't want to pay for it
I
right
don't blame
now.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, bud.
And this is from July 14th, which was 3 days ago, and that would be on Wednesday. So when it says Wednesday, it's July 14th. All right, let's continue. The legislation is far from passage, but top Democrats have agreed on working to include several far-reaching details. So this is kind of part of what's in it. They include, or what could be in it, because they're still kind of trying to figure everything out, with my understanding. So they include universal pre-kindergarten for all 3 and 4-year-olds, 2 years of free community college, clean energy requirements for utilities, and lower prescription drug prices. Medicare benefits would be expanded, and green cards would be extended to some undocumented immigrants. So very, very kind of promising things.
Wow, yeah. That's way more aggressive than I was expecting.
Yeah. And like I said, this is kind of, they're still drafting the legislation, so this is what they've agreed to, but this isn't necessarily what's going to be in the final bill. We're just going to have to see. All right, so at a closed-door luncheon in the Capitol, Mr. Biden rallied Democrats and the independents aligned with them to embrace the plan, which would require every single one of their votes to move forward over united Republican opposition, because we know the Republicans, they're having issues on the lower infrastructure bill. They're not going to want to play ball with a $3.5 trillion budget blueprint. So,
Yeah, I can see that one being tough.
yeah. But several moderate lawmakers who are crucial to the plan's success have had yet to say whether they'd accept the proposal. So we know like Manchin and Sinema and all those folks who, are just lovely.
Our favorites, yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Biden's message was, be unified, strong, big, and courageous, Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut said. Senate Democratic leaders have said they aim to pass both the budget blueprint and a narrower bipartisan infrastructure plan that is still being written before the August recess. That will be a politically tricky task in an evenly split Senate. The narrowly divided House would also have to pass the blueprint before both chambers tackle the details. Speaker Nancy Pelosi embraced the deal. This budget agreement is a victory for the American people, making historic, once-in-a-generation progress for families across the nation, she said in a letter to Democrats on Wednesday. The outline covers much of Mr. Biden's $4 trillion economic agenda. It addresses every major category from his American Families Plan, including investments in childcare, paid leave, and education, and expanded tax credits that this week will begin providing a monthly check to most families with children. And also, I think it was there was a quote from Chuck Schumer saying, between the 3.5 trillion bill that they're talking about right now and the 1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, which 600 billion of it is in new spending. So when you add the 3.5 plus the 600 billion, you get 4.1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying that's close to what Biden asked of them. Mm-hmm. So that's not in this article, but I wanted to kind of include that as well.
Out there, okay.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a lot done, Mr. Biden told reporters as he left the meeting, which was his first in-person lunch with the Democratic caucus as president, which I thought was interesting. I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously with COVID and everything, that kind of makes sense. Noting the budget constraints, party leaders conceded that many of the programs, including the tax credits, could be temporary, leaving a future Congress to decide whether to extend them.
Jesus.
So that could be maybe a problem in the future. But
that's usually how it works, sadly. That's kind of how a lot of the stuff gets gutted later down the road.
Better than nothing, I guess.
Yeah, it's a start.
Yeah. And then if they were, maybe we could kind of use this as a way to kind of, because if Democrats pass this, it's temporary, it has a time limit, and then Republicans choose to not extend it if they like control the Senate or whatever, we can like weaponize that against them.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being an ongoing thing. I mean, it would be better if it was just ongoing indefinitely, but yeah, that's obviously more to ask for. All right. So, and I think I am just going to kind of go through most of this article just because since this is such a new thing, I couldn't find a lot of sources about it. So this article will basically take care of what's out right now. But if you guys want to jump in at any time and have a discussion, we can. This is, like I said, it's kind of a longer thing. So.
Well, it's a joint article, so it's going to be very wordy.
Yeah.
So I will say though, judging from my own understanding of history, this is a good step forward. The biggest thing is those tax credits can be used as a means of galvanizing people to vote for Democrats. It's just about shaping the narrative around that. Because I mean, let's really be honest. The child tax credit is probably the most family-friendly policy to come from Congress in a long time.
Yeah.
Other than, the typical culture war BS that gets thrown, their way. So it is nice to see that. It's nice to see free community college.
That's the one I was looking at. I'm like 2 years of first 2 years of free community colleges. That's big.
That's huge. That's huge, and it's a good stepping stone for a lot of people. Because then, if it doesn't work out for them, they are not. They're not in the hole for anything.
They're not saddled with debt.
And what's awesome about that is that usually in those positions, there's a lot of blue-collar jobs and unions that use community colleges. So people will actually be able to go to the community college and possibly start a career without it costing them a dime. And they can get skills that will be vitally important, especially when it comes to infrastructure moving on.
Well, not just that, but it incentivizes just public education again. I think that we as just a society in general really sometimes underestimate the value of just pursuing further education. And that's crazy.
Well, and also with college, there's an incentive to take a certain amount of classes. I'm just pulling from my own experience. I don't know if it's necessarily the same at a community college, but there's an incentive to take a certain amount of credits because then when you go past that number, everything after that's free. So to get more bang for your buck, you're incentivized to do that. But then people don't have, if you're working a full-time job or more, you don't have time to do all those credits. So I think that would kind of help with that as well. People can do part-time school without having to feel like they're spending more money for less education.
What I like about it too is I think it's going to expand the number of community colleges that already exist, which is going to take a lot of pressure off of people having to go straight to the university, which will hopefully cause university prices to begin to decrease. because
Please, yeah.
like I think that that's one of those secret time bombs that people really don't talk about. It's just how corporatized, how marketized universities have become, and these are public institutions.
Yep. All right. Let's kind of keep going because the next paragraph talks about Medicare.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So the proposal includes some measures that go beyond what Mr. Biden has envisioned, like expanding Medicare to cover dental, vision, and hearing benefits. Democratic leaders also left it to the Senate Finance Committee to decide whether to include a measure that would lower the Medicare eligibility age to 60. Because it's at 65 or 70 right now, right?
65.
65. So that would be cool. That is a priority of Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, the Budget Committee chairman. The plan would also create what would effectively be a tax on imports from countries with high levels of greenhouse gas emissions. That could violate Mr. Biden's pledge not to raise taxes on Americans earning less than $400,000 a year if the tax is imposed on products such as electronics from China. So I don't know.
I'm still super for that.
I also think that this is kind of like a bullshit argument.
Yeah.
So taxes on imports from countries with the highest of greenhouse emissions could violate the pledge not to raise taxes. That's a bullshit argument. Because when he's talking about the taxes, he's talking about earnings.
Yeah,
it's literally in there. The earning less than
sales tax.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like this would be a tax on imports. That affects sales, not earnings.
Because if you earn less than $400,000 a year, but you're not planning on buying any products like electronics from China anytime in the future, this doesn't affect you.
Not just that, like this is a perfect example of newspeak. Okay, so this is the finely crafted BS that we're gonna get from the neoliberal types. So
sure, yeah.
A tax on imports is called what? It's called a tariff.
Yeah.
Okay, so these people don't like tariffs. So a tariff is not the same as increasing a person's income tax. And we don't even know the rate of the tax increase. I mean, it could be incredibly minimal, for all we know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an incentive for those countries to tackle the greenhouse gases. So it's essentially a CO2 tax.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's such a bullshit argument. Like, and the biggest thing I want the viewers to get is how to read through what's actually being said. So this is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, and this is the New York Times. I mean, it's kind of to be expected.
They're neoliberal and centrist.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in the faux populist way. I mean they believe in free trade insofar as globalization is concerned.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I can get into that, but I mean, I think we'd be getting off into the weeds. But essentially, essentially,
a lot of article to go.
It's very pro-corporate, and it's free trade for corporations, but not so much free trade for everyone else. So.
Yeah. So.
I guess where I stand on that as well is just that even if what it was saying were completely true, and we'd see increase in taxes on that. I guess at the end of the day, we already did a climate change segment, but we know it's brutal right now. I think any little bit that we make, any headway we make on this, is better than not. Yeah. Honestly,
I do have a Reuters article that I'm going to go to that an Ipsos poll was done basically on a few things, and one of them talks about taxes being raised on the average person, and I think it was 37% wanted that. But I think when it comes to climate change, even if what it's saying is true and the taxes would be raised on Americans earning less than $400,000 a year, I would be for that, because climate change is just ruining our planet right now, just in the past few months.
Yeah, it's going to be vastly more destructive than
I don't think the
taxes.
Argument of I don't want my taxes to go up a little bit is going to really be a sound argument in the future.
It's a good example of a bygone argument, right?
Yeah.
So this is the perfect example of what I call Clintonism. So it's that triangulation of the true median or moderate voter. And moderate voters are fiscally conservative and socially liberal in these people's minds. But clearly it's not what it is anymore. But that's who this article is written for. So go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah. Let's get through a little more.
Let's keep on going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was really good to point out there. All right. Democrats on Mr. Sanders' committee must produce a budget resolution in the coming days that includes so-called reconciliation instructions to other Senate committees. They will in turn draft legislation detailing how the $3.5 trillion would be spent and how taxes would be raised to pay for it. That would pave the way for Democrats to produce a reconciliation bill this fall that would be shielded from a filibuster, allowing them to circumvent Republican opposition by requiring all 50 of their members and a majority in the narrowly divided House to pass it. In some cases, it doesn't provide all the funding that I would like to do right now, Mr. Sanders said. But given the fact that we have 50 members and that compromises have got to be made, I think this is a very, very significant step forward. He added, if you're asking me at the end of the day, do I think we're going to pass this? I do. At the Democrats' lunch, Chuck Schumer of New York, the majority leader, outlined the proposal and the directives it would lay out. Democrats included the creation of a civilian climate corps to add jobs to address climate change and conservation. They also pushed to provide for child care, home care, and housing investments, and are expected to try to include a path to citizenship for some undocumented immigrants and to address labor rights.
So there's a lot packed in here.
So that's cost, other than the climate corps, most of that is cost negative or cost neutral. Because a lot of this money is gonna go straight into the market right as soon as it gets invested in. Most of the people are gonna use any kind of income they get for childcare, home care, and housing investments straight into the market. The pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants and the addressing labor rights are big things. Big things. And with the Civilian Climate Corps, I don't know if that's going to be privatized. So there's going to be private companies that are going to be able to form up and basically provide those services for the government. Or if it's going to be just the government itself. But either way, I'm really happy to see all that right there. Because
wouldn't it add money to the market because you're adding jobs, and from what I've heard, they're going to be good-paying union jobs. So wouldn't that add money to the market as well?
It would. But the biggest thing is, this is going to throw Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema out to dry, because if they come out against any of this, it's not going to look good for them. Because this isn't 2010 anymore, where the Republican Party and the Tea Party is shrieking about the debt.
Yeah.
The Republican Party is trying to do it right now, but it's not gaining near as much traction. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, the Koch brothers, there's not just the Koch brother, and there's really not a lot of people filling the shoes to finance something like that.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going here. The plan would also extend expanded subsidies for Americans buying health insurance through the Affordable Care Act that were included in the broad pandemic law that Mr. Biden signed this year. Huge investments would go to renewable energy and a transformed electrical system to move the U.S. economy away from oil, natural gas, and coal to wind, solar, and other renewable sources. The budget blueprint is to include a clean energy standard, which would mandate the production of electricity driven by renewable sources and bolster tax incentive for the purchase of electric cars and trucks.
Well, that's big. That's sweet.
Yeah, which is I think, very interesting. To fully finance the bill, it is expected to include higher taxes on overseas corporate activities to alleviate incentives for sending profits overseas, higher capital gains rates for the wealthy, higher taxes on large inheritances, and stronger tax law enforcement. So,
That one at
lovely.
the very end is the biggest one.
Stronger tax law enforcement.
Actually enforcing the law. Like, a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a lot of people that probably break tax laws, but they're allowed to because the administration tells them to ignore certain law violations.
Yep. That's very, very nice to read.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, continuing on, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, the chairman of the Finance Committee, said that he was preparing to overhaul a deduction for companies not organized as corporations, like many small businesses and law firms. Such a change would cut small businesses' taxes, but raise additional revenues from wealthy business owners. So I think that right there is really nice because,
again, that just shows that Congress has had the ability to do this for years. It's just they've chosen not to.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the way you interpret the laws that already exist.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, we'll get into it later.
Mm-hmm.
But to continue on, just because we're about halfway through this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Specific provisions will have to pass muster with the strict budgetary rules that govern the reconciliation process. Oh yeah, so this is kind of what I was thinking, which requires that provisions affect spending and taxation and not just lay out new policies. Okay, this next part kind of annoys me. The Senate parliamentarian could force Democrats to overhaul or outright jettison the clean energy standard, the provision that climate activists and many scientists most desire, as well as the immigration and labor provisions, among others. The parliamentarian has no power, right?
Yeah, no, that's bullshit. Once again, that's that neoliberal newspeak. So, the Senate parliamentarian, a person that nobody's ever heard of until recently. Yeah. So this is a way of bolstering the parliamentarian's power, thus basically giving cover to people like Manchin and Sinema, but also giving Joe Biden an out if the parliamentarian comes out and says, you can't have this. It's a horseshit argument. And unfortunately, they're going to go along with it because that's what the expert consensus says they should.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry.
You're good, but I did want to flag that. That's complete bullshit.
And once again, people, this is a good example of newspeak. This is a good example of crafting a bullshit narrative.
So, yeah, the New York Times, I feel like they give a lot of good information. Again, you do kind of get shit like this that...
Well, it's an opinion, right? So this is an opinion being shuffled in and is being reprocessed. Exactly, it's being reprocessed as a valid argument, when in reality it's one of their opinion on what could happen or what should happen.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so to move on from that, moderate Democrats who had balked at a progressive push to spend as much as $6 trillion on Mr. Biden's entire economic agenda largely declined to weigh in on the blueprint until they saw detailed legislation saying they needed to evaluate more than an overall spending number. We've got to get more meat on the bones for me, Senator John Tester, Democrat of Montana, told reporters, though he added that he would ultimately vote for the budget blueprint. I've got to get more information on what's in it. The size of the package could be shaped by the success or failure of the bipartisan infrastructure plan, which would devote nearly $600 billion in spending to roads, bridges, tunnels, transit, and broadband. The group of lawmakers negotiating that package has yet to release details as they haggle over the structure and how to pay for the plan. And then there's Lindsey Graham and friends and all that, because he has a few quotes coming up, so prepare yourself.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. If Republicans cannot deliver enough votes to move the package past a filibuster, Democrats could simply fold physical infrastructure spending into their reconciliation plan and take away any chance for Republicans to shape it, said Senator Rob Portman, Republican of Ohio, one of the bipartisan bill's negotiators. If we don't pass infrastructure, they're going to put even more infrastructure in than we have and worse policies, said Mr. Portman, who fielded skepticism into his colleagues at a private Republican lunch on Tuesday.
Talk about saying the quiet part out loud. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, holy crap.
We even have more infrastructure. It's like policies, okay, I can see where you like been clashing, but like, what's wrong with more infrastructure?
Yeah, what does more infrastructure hurt? Who does that
Guys, you
hurt?
don't understand. If we don't pass this one, they're gonna come back with double the power.
We're gonna get worse policies out there.
Gosh, I can't believe it. That is insane.
We're actually almost done.
Okay.
Some Republicans had hoped that a bipartisan accord on physical infrastructure projects would siphon momentum from a multi-trillion-dollar reconciliation package. Instead, it appears very much on track, and it may intensify the pressure on Republicans to come to terms on a bipartisan package, even if they fiercely oppose the rest of the Democrats' agenda. And we got Lindsey Graham coming up. I want to be able to tell people in South Carolina, I'm for this, I'm not for that, said Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, the top Republican on the Budget Committee and a peripheral presence in the bipartisan talks. He added that the lengthy floor debate over the blueprint would allow Republicans to ferociously attack it, to have amendments that draw the distinctions between the parties, to scream to high heaven that this is not infrastructure.
Oh my gosh, I'm just like hearing the screams of the damned in my brain right now.
Yeah,
Ferociously attack it. Oh god.
This is not infrastructure. Like, whatever, dude. Alright.
Yeah.
Nope.
And then we got Joe
My
Manchin.
Lord and Savior.
The third. Holy shit, I didn't know he was the third.
I didn't know he was the third either.
Oh god, this guy is
Is he also a
flippin'-
knight?
He's also
Yes.
he's a flippin' bourbon Democrat.
Oh, that's so bad.
Oh,
Oh, my
Lordy.
gosh.
Alright,
Joe
let me read
Manchin
this.
third. Oh Jesus. Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
so Senator Joe Manchin III of West Virginia, the centrist Democrat whose support might be determinative, told reporters that he had concerns about some of the climate language, but he did not rule out his support. Senator Kristen Sinema, Democrat of Arizona, another key moderate, also hung back on Wednesday. No shocker. Still, the $3.5 trillion package had plenty in it to appeal to senior Democrats who were eager to use it to advance their longtime priorities. For Senator Patty Murray of Washington, the chairwoman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, for her, it was an extension of a mere generous child tax credit, as well as subsidies for childcare, pre-kindergarten, and paid family leave. For Mr. Sanders, it was the Medicare and climate provisions. Quote, finally, we are going to have America in the position of leading the world in combating climate change, end quote, he said.
My king.
I know. He knows what's up.
Mm-hmm.
Really the climate is the most important thing. I mean, I get like certain senators have their things, like this Patty Murray is really all about the childcare, which is great.
I think it's, I agree. I think it's wonderful to be for like a lot of family stuff and whatnot, because obviously America has a lot of infrastructure problems regarding that. But really, climate should be first and foremost. It's
column A and column B. So we need to have it's bread and butter issues, right? So let's really be honest here. Like, nationally speaking, our economy is shit. A lot of people are struggling, and so having things like that on the table is a major incentive for people to come out and vote. And so right now, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are shitting themselves because they're gonna be told to come out against this, and they're gonna lose the primary. And I don't think the Republican Party is going to win because they are against childcare, pre-kindergarten, and paid family leave. Who the like the people who are against that? Like I said, there's no Tea Party this time. There's no we need to go up against this because we're taxed enough already. It's not there. It's not there. We need to take that energy. We need to be that voice, and we need to get out on the street and push this shit. Because Joe Manchin is going to eventually have to come up between either his donors and his voters, and if he loses the primary, especially to somebody who's not interested in donor money, the donors are going to lose out on that power.
Yep. Exactly. We got a little bit more to go. Okay. Mr. Tester said the need for school construction was so high that trillions could go to that alone, which makes sense. The plan is a strong first step, said Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, adding that she was focused on funding universal child care. We're slicing up the money now to find the right ways to make that happen. The budget measure is expected to include language prohibiting tax increases on small businesses, farms, and people making less than $400,000 a year, fulfilling a promise Mr. Biden has maintained throughout the negotiations. Asked on Wednesday whether the proposed carbon tariff would violate that pledge, Mr. Wyden replied, "We've not heard that argument." So, and that's the end of the article.
So...
It's got some fascinating stuff in it. Oh.
It was good. I overall, I really love this budget, but you know what? Why am I not surprised? Bernie Sanders was in charge of crafting this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
honestly, it sounds like the Green New Deal, but in hidden.
But I mean, it's not a complete.
Yeah.
It's not a complete Green New Deal.
It
but
definitely,
it definitely is. But it is a New Deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll call it the Teal New Deal. Okay.
There we go.
It's appealing to the Democratic Party. But oh man, if we could get this passed through, I don't know how the Republican Party is going to win in November in 2022.
Yeah, because it's going to have to.
All you have to do is talk about.
Sorry.
All you have to do is talk about all the benefits, everything that's coming your way, and the fact that the tax burden, instead of being thrown on the backs of working people, is instead going to be thrown on the backs of people that, honestly, are probably going to feel a pinch, but it's not going to be near as devastating as some people are going to try to make out to be. I mean, gotta hit while the iron is hot. Otherwise, it's just going to crack.
They'll be fine. And I kind of want to go back to a little earlier with the climate being the most important part. I think what we need to kind of keep in mind is that they're still drafting up the legislation, and this is just what they've agreed to. This isn't what's going to be in the package.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just don't want, again, I love all this stuff. I don't think there's anything in here that I don't like, but I think we need to be careful about, because let's just be real. Childcare and pre-kindergarten and paid family leave, amazing things, but it's not going to matter if our climate continues to dwindle. So I think we need to have that at the forefront, but also getting some of these things in so that we can get people out to vote, because unfortunately I think a lot of people just don't really care, or I don't want to say don't care, but I don't think it's the one thing that'll get them out to vote.
So I think that these things are major incentives to get people to come out to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Climate change, love it or not, hate it or not, is not a selling point for most Americans. You just ask.
It's going to get to a point where it's going to be too late before.
Exactly, but this is the thing. This is what I'm talking about. So, jobs being tied to this is huge, because these are going to be high-paid union jobs. So a lot of people are going to hear that and are going to like that, because all they're going to hear is decent pay and security.
Yep.
Second of all,
that's true.
The reason why we need to have those kids and the child care, pre-K, and all that, is that it's another incentive. It's an this is the first expansion to youth healthcare in well over a decade. Last time the youth in this country got any kind of financial support from our Congress was when CHIP was passed, and I think that was 2007. So this is a huge thing. So this is why I say this is an important talking point. Most people, it's impossible for them to comprehend the minutia of climate change. It's kind of like thinking about every drop of water in the ocean. Our brain is just not really designed to handle that.
Yeah.
But bread and butter issues like this being tied to climate change, associating climate change with positive change, not Armageddon and the end of the world, but as something that we can tackle, something we can handle, that's a selling point. And adding the fact that there's major lucrative jobs and business and ability for markets to invest in these industries on green energy and things like that, making it financially valuable to do that is a huge step forward. So in the end, we're kind of getting what we want. We want climate change to be dealt with. We want to be producing technology that basically turns countries into neutral carbon producers, and then we can try to maybe invest in technologies that allow us to extract carbon from our environment, or from the air, But, I mean, this is a great step forward. I mean, I don't see this as 2 steps back. And the other reason why I want that child care and stuff in there is Joe Manchin said that he was concerned about climate language. That was in the bill. All Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden have to do is say child tax credit, pre-K, health care, and all the other financial benefits to that to Joe Manchin and say, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You're gonna swallow this fucking pill, okay? You were given head of that infrastructure deal, and you gave a shit.
Yeah.
$600 billion is not a bad starting point, but it's definitely not a solution to our infrastructure.
Oh yeah, it's not gonna fix everything.
You failed, and you failed. You did not uphold your part. The Republican Party proved to you and showed you that they're not willing to work with us. So we're going to throw this out there. And if they're too stupid to realize that they might actually fall flat on their face with this infrastructure deal, we'll just tie that into it too. And I think this time around, Joe Biden might actually tell the parliamentarian to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
There's too many goodies in this. Too many things that he wants.
Well, and also, progressives have pushed for, I think the figure was $6 to $10 trillion in our infrastructure. So with the 3.5 plus the 600 billion totaling to 4.1, it's already a compromise. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just, again, I love everything that's going in here, but I really do think we need the Green New Deal, and I guess maybe that just can't happen right now. And so I am just kind of nervous about when it comes to climate. When you have so many good things in there, I feel like some people are going to push harder for everything else, and I just do think we need strong action against, climate change.
This once again kind of gets to my point. The fact that they're actually talking about enforcing laws that have not been enforced in a while is also really huge. Because, I mean, what basically is being said right here with this deal is that the United States government is going to crack down on Wall Street. So Wall Street can throw everything in the kitchen sink at this, but they're right now tossing a coin and seeing where it lands, and anybody who knows Wall Street people, they don't like that. They want to hedge their bets.
Yeah.
And so in reality, they're going to take a hit, but what Biden is offering them is a way of making money by investing in here.
Yeah.
It might not be as lucrative, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And who knows? We'll go from there. I mean, here's the thing. My issue is not about corporate wealth. My issue is about corporate power. We live in a capitalist economy. I wish we didn't, but here we are. So corporations making a profit isn't my issue. The issue is how much power the corporation have over their employees and over the governments and the society around them. And that
usually can go hand in hand.
They do, but I mean, you can just separate them, though. The government has allowed them to have that power because they're unwilling to enforce laws and labor laws that are already on the books. That's the issue here. It's that monopoly power. It's that power over people's lives where they essentially have governing powers over people. I mean, that's the key thing. That's what we really need to delineate here. And what I'm seeing here is a shot across the bow saying, hey, we are coming. This is going to happen. By hook or by crook, this is going to happen. If Joe Biden didn't want this to take place, he would have said in that meeting, I don't want to see any of this shit.
True.
So he wants this, and he wants it badly, and he's the president of the fucking United States of America. He can make a lot of these people's lives miserable by just turning to people who work for him and telling him, hey, I want you to actually enforce these laws now. And if I find out you're not doing that, I'm going to fire you, and I'll find somebody who will.
Yep. That's true. All right, real quick, and then we can kind of discuss a little bit more. I know I don't want to go on too long. Is public support for the plan. So this is a Reuters.com article that is a few days earlier than the New York Times article. I can go up and find the author. So it's U.S. Senate Democrats agreed to $3.5 trillion for budget reconciliation bill by Richard Cohen and Susan Cornwell, July 13th, 2021. And I just want to go down to this part for the public support. An Ipsos poll conducted this month for Reuters found that most Americans want the kind of infrastructure improvements that are included in the plan being pursued by Biden and congressional Democrats. So when Republicans rant and rave about, this, this infrastructure bill and the things in it, like, it has a majority support. So we'll go into that now. The national opinion poll conducted last Wednesday and Thursday found that 84% of adults in the United States supported a government spending plan that would repair or replace aging ports, railways, bridges, and highways. And I do want to say that just because the $3.5 trillion bill, since there's not specific legislation drafted yet, I don't think this is more talking about the bipartisan infrastructure bill, but it still shows that Americans really care about, infrastructure. So 76% support investing in home-based care for the elderly or disabled. 74% supported extending high-speed internet access to all Americans, which is also in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And 69% supported replacing all lead pipes in the United States. When asked how to pay for what could be a multi-trillion-dollar effort by Washington, 64% said they would support a tax increase for top-earning Americans, while 27% said they would oppose such a tax increase. Only 37% said they were willing to personally pay more in taxes to help fund a government infrastructure plan. And I understand that people don't like paying taxes, but then that's kind of where I veer off from everybody. And me personally, like, I'm not rich. I'm not anywhere close to rich. For important things like infrastructure and climate, I personally would be fine paying more in taxes. Now, do I think the responsibility should be on the average American? No. But I think when it comes to kind of the attitude of taxes, I do wish people would kind of, I don't know, not see it as just like, they're bad just across the board, but when your taxes go up, but it's for a good reason. And again, maybe this is an unpopular opinion. When your taxes go up, but it's for a good reason, I, as someone who doesn't make a lot of money, am fine with that. But that's just me. I don't know.
So I would like to jump in on this one as well, because I want to remind everyone as well that a lot of these tax increases are going to cut out other expenditures in your day-to-day lives as well.
Yeah.
A big part of this is like in highway repairs and whatnot. More often, you're not going to be paying for car repairs. Saves you on gas mileage. Lead pipes, you got cleaner water. Like, all of these things are like going to save you money down the road as well. You're not investing into that with your own capital.
And you're also investing in those local markets.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So two things I want to bring up. One, I'm surprised it's that high.
37%?
Yeah, that's huge for tax increases.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, I could tell you guys where I remember that, like, 4%. But the thing is, so this is that part of the evolving narrative and the evolving discussion. I think that it's fine for people to have a negative opinion of taxes. That's just natural human response. It's the part of the... I'm getting a lot of static.
I'm starting to get that too. Weird.
Oh, hold on. My air conditioning. Keep talking. I'm going to turn it off.
It's part of the politician's job to sell that tax. So if you're not selling the tax to people, if you're not doing that, yeah, people are going to come up with all sorts of reasons why their taxes are increasing. So one thing that I also like seeing in this is that what it can also help do is reduce the state's budgets so that people aren't paying hand over fist for licenses, for permits, for things like that. Because those are secret taxes that largely affect poorer people. Rich people don't have to worry about that. They hire out companies. They have people drive for them. If they own any cars, the cost of it is just a drop in the bucket. Most people have to pay thousands of dollars each year in secret taxes that state governments force on the citizenry, and it once again is a way of reducing the overall tax burden for the wealthiest people in the country. So seeing 37% of people saying that they support something like that is a huge step forward, because I can tell you, not even just 10 years ago, that would have been a huge no-no. That would have maybe been 4 or 5% of the population. So what we need to do, and what the Democrats need to do, is they need to sell this shit. Because if it gets to a point where people are over 50% supporting a tax increase for this, I'm not for that, because I don't think they have to have their taxes increased for something like this. And we'll get into it when it comes to MMT. But this is a good thing. This is a good step forward.
And I do want to say, I want to read this last sentence. So the Ipsos poll gathered responses from 1,004 adults, and the results had a credibility interval, a measure of precision, of 4 percentage points. So maybe that kind of explains why the 37% is higher, depending on just how many, because I don't know if 1,000 is necessarily a lot for a study like this. I mean, maybe it is. I'm not.
I think it depends, because a lot of the times they go for different like averages when they pull that as well. Like they're going to pull people from different backgrounds so they can get like a better like ratio as well.
Ipsos is also pretty reputable. I mean, they usually have pretty good statistics.
Yeah, and so like I said, I don't support the average American having to foot the bill all the time, but I think, and maybe this is just me kind of just speculating, but I believe kind of this attitude towards taxes kind of can create this position that people are against taxes for the wealthy as well. Not everybody, because a majority of people do support taxes for the wealthy. But I think some people have it in their mind that, when I get rich one day, I don't want to have to pay, all this money after my $2 million or whatever. I do believe it can kind of create a situation like that. And I just think, I don't know. I get that people don't like taxes. Honestly, if we could have all this stuff and not have an increase on, my taxes or your taxes, like, I think that'd be great. But if it can help, I'm personally not against it. I
agree. I just want to remind as well, in that article it says 74% also support extending high-speed internet access to all Americans.
Yep.
But again, like as I said, a lot of that is like money saving in the long run, because my internet is literally tied to rent. I pay for it every time. I'm sure it's the same with many other people.
Well, and I don't know, because since it's access, I don't know if it would be free or if you would just have access to high-speed internet.
That's possible, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of these things in the long run benefit you.
It's cost-neutral infrastructure for those internet companies.
Yeah, exactly.
So, not to rush anything, but we are getting close to the hour mark.
Okay, sorry. I know we were kind of going for a long time, but that's it with this one. So we can, unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about, maybe do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. What are your guys' final thoughts on this?
For me, as I said, just we need to be willing to sometimes accept that like taxes are going to go up for certain things, but really it's okay to have that if it benefits like us in general in the long run. So don't be so opposed to that, I guess.
Yeah.
Infrastructure plans like this usually only have net benefits.
They serve the people.
And just whenever you're reading information like this, always understand the person writing it is going to have a bias. And the biggest thing is reading between the lines and seeing what's actually being said, as you've displayed multiple times in the previous article. And also, change is going to be expensive.
Yeah.
So if we're able to get what we want through and it's cost neutral for the average taxpayer, great. If not, I mean, I just think that the long-term benefits of this is going to basically be net neutral to us. I don't see it being so painfully burdensome for the average American to pay for this. So
and I know this is a talking point that's been used quite a bit, but when it comes to paying, like the question how we pay for things, again, we never hear that question when it comes to the military. We never hear that question when it comes to tax breaks for the wealthy. And again, like I said, I know that's a big talking point, but I think it's very important. And so,
it's an argument, and it's an argument that's designed to that's crafted in a specific way to appeal to a certain audience. So
yeah, and this is, like I've said earlier, this is already a compromise because progressives wanted 6 to 10 trillion. This altogether is 4.1. This is already a compromise. This is infrastructure. I feel like at the very least, the one thing we shouldn't be like so up in arms because, oh, how do we pay for it? Oh my God, should be infrastructure. And right now we're just seeing Republicans and Manchin and Sinema completely throwing a wrench into all of this, being this isn't infrastructure.
We can cover that in MMT because I have quite a few arguments about that.
Yeah, so basically, sorry, just to kind of wrap it all up, we're just going to have to kind of see how this 3.5 trillion bill kind of pans out. I know there's an August recess. I think they're either going to try to focus more on the bipartisan bill before that and then focus on this one after. So we're just going to have to see how it develops. I think all of this sounds amazing. I hope, we can get it all pushed through. I hope we can get it through reconciliation and the Republicans can suck it. And we're going to, as lefties, we're really going to have to hammer that home in future elections when this, goes through that, hey, no Republicans supported this. They didn't. They were just a freaking thorn in the side. And hopefully we can get more of them kind of out and replaced with people who actually want to see, decent change in this country. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for watching Goodfellas History. If you liked what you saw, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Smash that like button.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.